All right, so in this video, kind of going along with the theme that I've kind of started for myself, was I kind of wanted to take a look more at the, um, I guess, more mental illnesses that come from the DSM-5 and how that affects our learning. So last week, I did ADHD, and this week, I kind of wanted to, know the difference between something like ADHD or a more learning and attention disorder, as opposed to maybe how somebody learns on the spectrum, autism spectrum, to be specific. So, just kind of knowing what I already know about learning, which is that most people use two or three different learning styles. So that's either visually, auditory, or kinesthetically. And so all of those, are pretty difficult for somebody on the autism spectrum. So through my research, it said things to know about kids on the spectrum is that it actually does share a lot of the same, I guess, symptoms that somebody with a learning and attention issue might have. So learning disabilities or attention disabilities, they're all pretty similar when it comes to learning with autism. Another interesting fact was that not all kids with autism learn the same way. So it doesn't impact all the kids the same way, or even as they grow into an adulthood. And then it was also saying that they're very similar. They have a lot of the same issues that kids with learning and attention issues face. So some of the issues that kids on the autism spectrum face when it comes to learning is that they have, one, it's that social learning. So they have trouble recognizing, people's faces, their feelings, reading those nonverbal cues that oftentimes helps us with learning, especially in social environments. And so, this is also seen with social communication disorders, ADHD, like I said earlier, and a few other things. Another issue that they face is that they have difficulty with executive functioning. So it's really hard for them to, organize and solve problems. They struggle with, keeping their attention in check, which is a very, important skill when it comes to learning. Being able to solve problems and being able to be organized and learn from your mistakes and keep your emotions in check and everything like that. So they have difficulty with that. And then, they have a tendency to seek out or avoid sensory input. So, kids with autism wouldn't learn auditorily because, well, they could, but most of them won't because, there's that they try to avoid anything sensory. And then, they also, a lot of them have trouble working with words. So a lot of them, either are nonverbal or have difficulty, learning, reading, writing, all that kind of stuff. And so that just gets played into, how they learn. And so I also wanted to look into kind of how autism affects learning. And so a lot of the people on the spectrum, they develop at a different rate, and they don't necessarily develop skills in the same order as a neurotypical person. So what the styles and the types of learning that work for a atypical person wouldn't necessarily work. So you'd have to adjust, based on that individual's development and kind of where they're at, where their skill levels are at. Another thing was that it's hard for them to pay attention, to others, to communicate, to understand different perspectives, kind of to see the big picture, which a lot of times in learning, that's what it takes. You take little tiny bits of information and you've got to pull them together in order to see the big picture of what you're learning. And it's really difficult for kids with autism to do that. It also makes it difficult for them to learn and communicate with others. So, they're not going to learn very well from a teacher standing in front of the class, giving a speech or a lecture. They're not going to learn from a lot of visual aids like that. It's all different. So I think all of that needs to be taken into account. And then through the research, of course, there's autistic savants. And so that is basically a person with autism who has a single extraordinary area of knowledge or ability. So you see it a lot with autistic kids who are just insanely good at math, or, extremely artistic, really smart in one individual area. And I thought that was really interesting to learn about and read about. So very cool research I think I found to kind of give me a better picture of different mental disorders and kind of how they, affect a person.